And so what I think is so interesting when we bring that into what we were talking about before about digital transformation, it's like change is difficult.
Yeah.
Right? Change is stressful. You have to account for that when you're figuring out what your capacity of your team is to work, right? Understanding that this whole process is stressful and that's going to diminish their capacity. And they're going to need more time off. They're going to need more time to learn. They're going to need more time to sit with what they're learning. They need more time to figure out, like, is this what I want to do or not what I want to do? Is this too much, right? And help them whichever way they want to go, right?
Yeah.
Because if you do that, it may not be the fastest transformation, but it'll be a better one than you would have if you tried to do it too fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said too for, so you mentioned like leadership, not necessarily your assigned organizational people leaders, but the leadership inside of your cohorts. And I think this is kind of something that's been sticking with me more and more as we've sort of seen the late stage of various tech movements continue on. And I think there's a lot of value to building that safety between your peers, right? And like, we can't, as folks who are like interested in seeing this happen and who may not be in leadership positions ourselves, like organizational hierarchy leadership positions, I think it's important to start reaching out to your cohort and starting to build those connections, right? So one of the things I've been digging into and wrote a talk from, pulls from the, there's a, sorry, it's all like referenced down and now I need to provide the correct context.
Yeah.
Pulls from a scientific paper that's queer theory for lichens, which I think is fantastic. And one of the conjectures, like, so if you know what a lichen is, it is this organism that's a symbiotic relationship between two different species that can't be separated, right? For all intents and purposes.
Is it algae and a fungus, I think?
Yeah, more or less. It's an algae and a fungus. And as I was like doing research for the talk, found out like yeasts are involved too. So we're talking about like multiple kingdoms worth of species involved in this single relationship that can't meaningfully be separated in any way without like breaking the whole thing apart.
Yeah.
And dives into kind of how this appears in nature, and like largely that is what we all are these symbiotic relationships, both like interspecies, like we like digging into like thinking of the human gut biome, right? Like we don't survive without the microbacteria that exist within our bodies. Like we just cannot survive. But I think the same is true. Like I think these patterns play out over and over again, and so I think it's true between us as well. And so like building these connections that we have through whether it's this conference or DevOps days or whatever else, and like also on our teams of building that psychological safety when it's not coming from leadership is super important, right? Like we can't trust a top-down deployment of like being safe at work.
No.
You have to talk to each other and build that too. Like I think
it's funny. We talk about conferences like this and how they build that. The one thing I think that they really do here at these conferences that is so important is recognizing that level of leadership on the ground level, the chop wood, carry water one. Like, and that's something that I think more organizations can do. In the end, right? Maybe you pay them more money, but recognize their efforts as a good start for the things that go unsung. That leadership within the cohort, that thing that doesn't amount to a totally green thing on GitHub or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that we do that are not related to fingers on code that are important and critical even for any enterprise.
Yeah. Awesome. I like that it's once again proving that all the heart of all these technical problems is maybe if we were better at being people together,
That's it.
the rest of it would be largely an arbitrary solution of what code do I type to make it happen.
It's an implementation detail.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Fat.
Of course, love every conversation that we get to have.
I do too.
So this was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.